Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I'm Jordan,
I'm Aaron.
I bet.
and I'm sorry to our viewers. You guys are going to have to bear with me a little bit. I do think I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold or something. So if my voice is a little off, or I look a little off, or I look a little worse than I normally do, which is already like the baseline not great. Where I'm dealing with a little bit of sickness. So please be nice to be in the comments. But yeah, we had another big week of sports. But before we get to any of that, we just want to send our condolences on behalf of Gold Country Media to the Colfax High School family. For those of you that don't know, Dante De La Torre, a junior at Colfax High School, went missing on Wednesday, and Thursday, unfortunately, they found him deceased in the Gold Run area. Dante was a member of the boys soccer team at Colfax. So just our thoughts and prayers go out to them during this difficult time. It's difficult to lose a classmate, a teammate, a student, a family member, a friend, any of that. So we want the Colfax family to know that we are with them on this, and it's not an easy time. So prayers out to that family. But on that note, everyone, we had another busy weekend. How was everyone's weekend?
Good. I went to what I think is probably the craziest college football game I've ever seen in my life. On Friday night, it was Sac State and Incarnate Word from San Antonio, 66-63, 129 combined points scored. I just, there was no defense to be had whatsoever. But I mean, it made for an exciting ball game, and Sac State just couldn't pull it out. But a lot of people at that one. It was pretty fun.
So I gotta ask, did you stay the entire game?
It was 4 hours and 10 minutes long, and you bet I stayed that entire game. Didn't get back to my friend's house till midnight. Didn't get back home till about 12:45. It was a long night for sure. And then of course yesterday watched some regular NFL football. But yeah, it was a long game.
Yeah. I mean, seems like it was a game that was worth it. I stayed up and I watched that, and it was one of the most insane games I've watched. And I was doing the math, and I think I've watched three of the five highest scoring games in college football history live. So I guess that's a pretty good track record to have. But Matt, kind of throwing over to you. What was your weekend like?
Yeah, I watched that game, and just personally, I don't like games like that. I like to see a little bit of defense. I don't like these high scoring. I don't know what it is. It aggravates me, gets me mad. It's just, but so that game kind of disappointed me just because. Well, of course, I wanted Sac State to win, but then I had to get up kind of early Saturday for this basketball tournament. This game was going forever. I was like wanted to go to sleep, but I didn't want to turn it off. And I was like, oh. But anyways, hey, congratulations for Coach Taylor. Get the job at Stanford too. So that worked out good for him. But
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Big congrats to him. I tweeted this out, and I do gotta say it. Unfortunately, his career at Sac State ended with probably some of the worst clock management I've ever seen. They took about 15 seconds off the clock when they could have called the timeout, but it is what it is. It was a solid game.
It is, and I mean, Taylor. I think a lot of people in the area, I've seen some reactions on social. They're upset that he's going, but part of me is also like, guys, he wasn't going to stay in Sac forever, and realistically, he probably stayed a season or two longer than most other coaches would have. So I think we kind of, obviously it hurts right now, but I think looking back, we're going to be thankful for what he did for Sac more than anything. But I've got my weekend was an eventful one. We had my family gets together every December, and we celebrate Christmas on a weekend because we can't all be together on real Christmas. So we kind of do like a little early Christmas. It's really more so just getting together, hanging out, watching some football, visiting the grandparents, and doing a nice dinner. But Saturday morning, this is a great story for everyone. We my fiance's sister came home from school for Christmas break, and we all went to the airport to pick her up. And we woke up about 7 in the morning, go to the airport to pick her up, and all of a sudden we see her flight. She's coming. She went from Omaha to Phoenix, and then from Phoenix to Sacramento. Well, we're there, and all of a sudden her flight time, it says that they're not arriving at all. And I'm like, what's going on? And we figured out, and I have that like flight tracker app on my phone because I'm a weird guy and I get bored sometimes and we'll just like look at random flights because I'm weird like that. But I go look at it, and I look, and her sister's flight went from Phoenix, and they were over Forest Hill, and all of a sudden they make a complete U-turn and they're going to Vegas. And we're like, what's going on? Did their plane get hijacked or something? Like, what's happening? Well, it turns out the de-icer on their plane was broken, and above Forest Hill, it was very icy in that storm over the weekend, and their landing gear couldn't drop. So they had to turn around and land in a warmer weather airport so the ice could melt on their plane, and they got diverted to Vegas. And they were supposed to land at like 9 o'clock. They didn't end up getting to Sacramento till like 2:30 or something like that. And it was a crazy thing. She told me that when they were over Forest Hill, they were 5 minutes from landing in Sacramento, and they were below the cloud line. But because the de-icer was messed up, they didn't want to go back up where it was going to be, higher altitude and colder. So they actually flew to Vegas from Forest Hill, like just below the cloud line the whole time, so they could be in warmer weather. I'm like, that has got to be one of the craziest flights you've ever been on. Probably one of the most stressful flights you've ever been on. So thought
Why
that
wouldn't
was
they just
interesting. What was that, Matt?
why wouldn't they go to San Francisco? Why go all the way back to Vegas?
We asked that question too. My guess was because they probably just were thinking there's either one or two things we figured is it was the mechanic that could work on the de-icer was in Vegas or something like that, and that's where they had to be. The other thing was maybe the temperature change. They needed to go to a warmer weather city rather than, but I'm like, San Francisco's not freezing, but it might have not given them enough time to get the ice to.
Usually, if there's an issue, they find the closest airport. It's like,
yeah, because I mean, I was like, I get them not turning and landing in Reno, like, makes sense. My guess is because the ice was frozen over the landing gear doors. My guess is they probably just needed to give it enough time to melt or something like that. But hey, crazy Saturday, but back on the sports front, I know we had a lot going on. Aaron, you were one of the busiest ones out of us this week. Let's kind of talk about some of the games you were at.
Yeah, so last Monday I went and checked out some soccer. I was at Lincoln versus El Dorado. The Zebras, I expected them to win this one handily, and they did, but it didn't look like it in the beginning. They didn't get a lot going with their attack in the first half. They fired at will in the second half, but yeah, they won 6-0. They showed why they're probably one of the better teams in the section. Israel Longlois and Isaiah Eberhardt both had 2 goals in the game. Zach Giles scored the first goal late in the first half, and then Ramses Hernandez also added one on the score sheet as well. Zebras went on to play in a tournament this last weekend and beat Elk Grove and Kennedy, and then played Rockland as well. So that was Monday. Got to see some Lincoln soccer, and then Tuesday I was at 12 Bridges for a girls basketball game against Rockland, and it was silent night for the Rhinos. So basically, what that means is, and I think a lot of schools do this, fans basically stay quiet until the 10th point is scored. The problem with the Rhinos is that 10th point didn't get scored until about 2 minutes left in the first half. So those fans were quiet for quite a while. The Thunder played solid defense and forced a ton of turnovers. While Bo Seipler and Bianca Sloan both scored 17 in the game. I kind of look at this one from 2 perspectives. The final score was 58-33 Rockland, but it was a 12-point game at halftime. The Rhinos fought for 2.5 quarters against a decent SFL team, so they could be solid come league play. But at the same time, Rockland also didn't play their best game. They turned it over a bit too much, missed some easy shots. I could see them also having a tough time in league. But for the Rhinos, Jocelyn Kang led in scoring, and then Ayana Woods played solid defense and led in rebounding. That was my Monday and Tuesday. I'll get into a little stuff about later in the week here in a few, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Matt for his stuff for this week.
Silent night. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought a lot of schools did that because I've noticed, at least when I went to Lincoln, I think they did that once as well. And I've seen other schools do that, but yeah, I guess maybe it's not as prevalent as I thought. But yeah.
Well, I'm old too, so anyway, hey, Folsom Vista Winter Classic was held this week, Thursday through Saturday. All 3 of my local teams were there, so it was a perfect place for me to be. Thursday, the best game of the first day of the tournament was Folsom against Oak Ridge Girls, or Vista Del Lago against Oak Ridge Girls. The other 3 games were blowouts, but this one was a very good game. Close throughout. The biggest lead, Oak Ridge was up by, or Vista was up by 7 at one point in the first half, and in the second half, neither team had a lead bigger than 4 points. So it was a close, competitive game throughout. Vista Del Lago, Ursula Chen had hit 2 free throws late with like about 25 seconds to go to put Vista up by 1. Oak Ridge got the ball back, took it down the court, ran the clock, and sophomore Ava Edwards hit a 3-pointer with 5 seconds to go to give the Trojans a 2-point lead and a win. Vista had a last-second shot, but it was more of a desperation heave and wasn't close. So almost a buzzer beater for the Trojans, and a nice win for them over Vista Del Lago. And Vista played well. It was a good game. It could have went either way. So a good game for both teams to start the tournament. And then the nightcap on that night, Thursday night, was Folsom against Pleasant Grove, and that game was not competitive. Folsom, one of the best teams around, and you never schedule a real tough team on your first game of the tournament, so you can figure the score wouldn't have been that close. 93-27 the final there. Folsom led by 30 after the first quarter, and the rout was on after that. Sophia Minderman, 27 points, all in the first 3 quarters. Cameron Mafua, 17 points, and 10 points for Dixie McClanahan on that one. And I forgot the earlier game. Oak Ridge, Brooke Williams led Oak Ridge with 12 points. Sophia Williams scored 10. And Ursula Chen led the Eagles, Vista Del Lago with 9 points. Friday, I went over to Antelope for the Titan Classic to check out Vista Del Lago's boys play Bella Vista in the second round. And the game was scheduled for 5:30. And surprisingly enough, the tournament was kind of running a little ahead of schedule. The game started about 10 minutes early. And, I'm joking about this, of course, but Vista Del Lago, they might not have shown up until 5:30 because they fell behind 8-0 to start the game, and by the end of the first quarter, we're down 24-4. So they just got blown out of this game in the first quarter, which wasn't much fun to watch, and I'm sure it wasn't fun for Coach Verbitsky to watch either. But the rest of the game, they played them even. But when you're down 20, you need to do what you need to be doing more than that to come back. So Vista lost that game 65-45. And Logan Rexford led the team with 14 points. Shane Hargraves, Dominic Rasami, and Nico Biaghetti, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. They all finished with 7 points. And I'll get back to the final day of the Folsom Vista Classic after we hear from Jordan again and Aaron. Jordan, you're up.
All right. Well, the first game I was at this week was a battle of 2 of the best small schools in the area. It was Colfax and Calaveras girls basketball. I think they were the 2 top-ranked schools in Division IV by most people in the section. And pretty much everyone on both sides felt that it was going to be a section championship preview. And if you're a Calaveras fan, I think you're really hoping that maybe it's a matchup preview, but not a preview of how that game would go, because it was all Colfax. Colfax won that one 65-30. They outscored the Red Hawks 16-0 in the fourth quarter. On the way of the win, it was down low was the big battle. Juliet James of Colfax, she had 17 points and 8 rebounds. Gabby Bittner had 11 points and 10 assists. And then Macy Hyman and Kaya Diedrichs each had 10 points for the Falcons. The Colfax defense was unbelievable. They had 20 steals in the game. They just gave Calaveras fits all night. And, Calaveras kind of, they hung in there in the first quarter. It was 8-8 for most of the quarter. Then Colfax ended the first quarter on an 8-2 run. And then the Falcons just blew it wide open. They were up 36-20 at the half. And it just kind of got out of hand fast and stayed out of hand. And the Falcons they looked the part, and they've really made a lot of statements so far with some of their wins in the beginning of the year. I know they had the wins over Del Oro, the wins over Rockland. They won Placer's, or they came in second in Placer's Coach G Memorial. The only loss was to Pleasant Valley out of Chico, is going to be one of the better teams in NorCal this year. So the Falcons really made a statement. And then they went into the Vista Del Lago tournament this weekend in the silver bracket, I believe, over there, the one that was at Vista Del Lago. And they won that bracket. They defeated Lodi, Franklin, and then Reno High School. Jade Bittner had 10 points in the 42-41 win over Reno. And Hyman had another 8 points and 11 assists. So a big weekend for the Colfax girls basketball team. And then the only other game I was actually feet on the ground at this week was Placer and Whitney girls soccer. Whitney ended up winning that one 2-0, but the score did not do the match justice. Placer keeper Ashlyn, I believe it's Doremus or Doremus, had 16 saves in the match. And if you look at the 2 goals that were scored, actually, one of them was on a penalty kick for Whitney, and the other one was on a counterattack that was essentially, it was the last play of the game. It was basically the 80th minute, and Placer had every defender up, and the ball just ended up bouncing out the other way, and it was a one-on-one of Whitney's Kylie Whipple and Placer's goalie. So, it's kind of two goals where she makes 16 saves in the game, and both goals with a PK and a counterattack that's a one-on-one. You can't really fault her for letting either of those ones in, but just a great match. Placer really came in there and held tall, and, a lot of Whitney's shots were just right off the crossbar, just sailing wide, or just incredible saves by the keeper. So, hey, you know what? That was a great match. It was a very entertaining match to watch, and glad we got to see that one. But I know, Aaron, you were at some more. So before I throw it back to you, though, I do want to leave you with one thing. The Silent Night game, a fun fact, that actually started at Taylor University in 1997. And the women's basketball head coach at William Jessup, Corey Laster, he actually played at Taylor University when that game began, and he's in their Hall of Fame. And he actually was one of their all-time leaders in scoring and rebounding by the time he left there. So our area does actually have a little connection to when the Silent Night game first started.
And they call me the encyclopedia of sports knowledge. I'd like that. That's good. So yeah, getting into a couple other games I was at last week. Wednesday, I announced and covered the Zebras against Western Sierra boys basketball game. The Wolves kept this one much closer than I expected. I want to say last year, Lincoln beat Western Sierra by 30, and Western Sierra at that time had Nick Franti and Camden Beal, who were just a force down low, grabbed a ton of rebounds. They don't have those two players this year because they graduated, but they still only lost by 13. Zebras won 44-31. Lincoln was actually down at the end of the first quarter. They didn't shoot the ball well really that much all night. And then Western Sierra also won the fourth quarter 17-8. Mathis Klein led in scoring for the Wolves with 12, and then Chase Delaloy had 9 points and 10 rebounds. They're in a rebuilding season, but they didn't look that bad. I mean, honestly, if they can play defense like that throughout the season in league, I think they can definitely be a bit of an underdog for sure. Thursday, I covered the first round of the Titan Holiday Classic at Antelope High. It was Granite Bay versus Vista. Granite Bay senior, I believe I'm pronouncing this right, Yaqub Mir, showed why he's one of the best players in the area. He finished with 31 points while Davis Abell added 17. Grizzlies went on to lose to Lincoln of Stockton the next day, and then they beat Davis 65-55 to take third in the tournament on Saturday. Oakmont was also at that tournament and went 1-2, losing to Antelope and Bella Vista, and then also beating Center.
All right, another big one. And Matt, do we have any more over there from you?
Yeah, we're going back to the final day of the Folsom Vista Classic. Vista opened the day up with their second straight win. They defeated Pleasant Grove 50-42. Ella Skirnez 19 points, 9 for Rosie Conrad to lead the way. And then Oak Ridge played Pleasant Valley and Chico, who you mentioned earlier. And it's funny because the opening game of the tournament, they played Davis, and so I was talking to somebody about them, and I'm like, they didn't really impress me that much. I knew they had a good record, but they didn't really play that well, I didn't think. And then I didn't see their game Friday against Folsom, but apparently they played Folsom pretty tough. And then Saturday, Pleasant Valley played Oak Ridge. And so, again, the first half, Pleasant Valley only had 12 points. I'm like, how can this team be like 8-1? They just did not look good to me. Third quarter, they played a little bit better, but they're down by 9 going into the fourth quarter. And then I guess Pleasant Valley turned on the Jets, or played like they normally do, I guess. They went on an 18-0 run and turned a 9-point deficit into a 9-point lead. And I don't know, during that run, I don't know if they missed a shot. I mean, they had 4 3-pointers from 3 different players and 3 2-pointers, and they just could not miss. So they ended up winning that game, coming back from 9 down in the fourth quarter. And what did they win it? I don't have it. Where is it? I know I have it, but they won by 3, 49-46 or something like that. But great game for Pleasant Valley. They're not in our area, but you mentioned them, so I wanted to say something about it. Brooke Williams led Oak Ridge with 12 points. Ella Cottrell had 11. Championship game, Folsom against St. Mary's. These are two of the best teams in the section. They played in the semifinals last year. Folsom beat St. Mary's for the first time on a buzzer beater. So both teams, St. Mary's wanted revenge, and then Folsom just wanted to show St. Mary's that game wasn't a fluke. So this game was a battle from start to finish, high energy. two of the best teams. I mean, it had a good crowd for an early season game too. So, and Folsom was without their sophomore point guard Ava Rollins, who in the third game of the season, the weekend ago, tore ACL, so she's out for the season. And another one of their top scorers, Charlotte Climate Age, did not play. She's got a bad knee too. Nobody knows when she'll be back, but Folsom was out two of their best scorers, two of their best players, and they still won the game 61-57. Mafua was huge in this game, at 22 points, was the leader of this team from the start. Let's see here. I want to get to the end here. Oh, Ella Uriarte for Folsom had a big basket late to put Folsom up by 2. St. Mary's had the ball. Mafua made a steal, got the ball to Sophia Vinderman, who had a pair of free throws to seal the victory. So just a great win for the Bulldogs, and they were really excited about it. And it's a good sign for them, moving forward. And I would not be surprised if these two teams ran into each other again in the postseason.
Yeah,
back to you, Jordan.
I think we found a lot of these, a lot of the big names, whether it be, the small schools like the Colfaxes or the big ones like the Folsoms. We've really found, especially, football, you see it a lot, but basketball, you really see it with, having a lot more non-league games at your disposal. A lot of these teams will schedule the teams that they think they are going to be matching up with in the playoffs or first section or even NorCal championships. Feels like they really try to find a tournament that all of them are there, or try to find a time to get all those teams on the schedule and really see how you stack up against one another. And I guess, football, you lose 1 or 2 games and all of a sudden, hey, you might be hurting your playoff seeding, but basketball, I think you can afford maybe, 1 or 2 of those losses to really see how you stack up against the other big dogs in the region.
Yeah, and both these teams, even though St. Mary's lost, I mean, they learned a lot of this game, and it was a close game. It could have went either way. These teams play each other 10 times. I bet you they go 5-5. So if they meet again, they'll learn from this game and move forward. So it really was a good basketball game.
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of wrapping up some of the other stuff that we had going on. Placer Girls Hoops took 7th at the Girls Harlan Carter up in Reading. They fell to University Prep in Foothill, and then they beat Enterprise. And I want to give a shout out because University Prep has the coolest abbreviation I've ever seen for a high school. They just call it UPrep, and I think that's really cool. So I just wanted to give a shout out for that. Placer Boys won the Rosemont tournament. They beat Cordova, Rosemont, and then Del Campo 57-55 in a thriller in the championship of that one. Placer's 8-0 on the season. They played Del Oro on Tuesday. Last year, I think Placer was 12-0 to start the year, and Dio handed them the first loss of the year. Of course, Placer avenged that loss later in the Kendall Arnett championship. So it's going to be interesting to see that one, especially because both the teams are in the Kendall Arnett again this year too, and probably look like maybe outside of Del Campo, really the 2 best teams in that field right now. So that's going to be an interesting one. The Bear River boys went 2-1 at the Leroy Green Academy tournament. They lost to the hosts in the first round, but then they beat Alexander Twilight Academy, which I did not know was a real school, but apparently it is. And Futures. So Bear River boys basketball off to a very solid start in year 2 under Dan Mooney, and they look like they're just going to be getting better every week. And then Colfax girls soccer beat Sutter 8-0 Wednesday night. They've outscored their opponent. They're 4-0-1 on the year. Have outscored their opponents 30-3. And I mentioned how impressive Kaya Diedrichs was on the basketball floor. She's just as impressive in soccer. She's already got 11 goals in their first 5 games. Last year, she broke the school scoring record of 37 goals in a season, and she is right on pace to do that again this year, breaking her own record in her sophomore year. So a shout out to Colfax girls soccer, and a shout out to boys soccer as well at Colfax. They beat Sutter 4-1 on Wednesday night. And of course, that was the night that their teammate was missing. So impressive of them, with all that going on, that they were able to pull out a win. They also have a match on tomorrow night, and it's going to be their first match since all this happened against Marysville. And that's a home match. I do plan to be up there for that. And it'll be interesting to see, what's going on up there. But that's another team that's really making some noise right now. And I think, when you think of some of these schools, you think of the girls teams and how solid they've been, but this boys team's really flying under the radar, and I would not be shocked to see them make some noise this year. So a shout out for that. And Aaron, kind of throwing over to you. I know you had some other results on the pitch, including a team I'm kind of familiar with, but let me know what you saw over there from some of your teams in South Placer.
Yeah, I actually most of what I have left is actually related back to basketball. I will be at the Wood Creek Whitney girls soccer game tomorrow on Tuesday, and then I'll actually be at the first 25 minutes of the 12 Bridges Center girls soccer game. Both of those teams, 12 Bridges, well, actually all three, 12 Bridges, Whitney, and Wood Creek, are all playing really well to start the season. But yeah, getting back to some basketball, Valley Christian Academy's girls. It was actually VCA versus VCA. Valley Christian girls lost to Valley Christian of San Jose 67-60 in the finals of the Argonaut tournament, which is actually a huge loss. Even though they only lost by 7, you have to take into account that the Valley Christian Academy of Roseville is a D6 small school, while Valley Christian of San Jose is a Division II school. So, I mean, that's huge. I mean, Valley Christian is going to be in D5 for playoffs this year because they've won about 5 of the last 8 years section titles in D6 for the Sac Joaquin section. But I mean, if they're competing that well with a D2 school from the Bay, I think they might just be just fine D5 playoffs. Valley Christian's boys were third in the Viking Classic at Victory Christian, beating the hosts in the final game on Saturday. Chris Donkor has been leading the way for them to start the season, and Coach Brad Gunner over there runs the Grinnell system extremely well. Very high-paced offense, continuously sub guys out, put others in, and it just works extremely well over there. Whitney High's boys won the Scatini tournament, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, at Palma High School in Salinas over the weekend. They are currently 7-2. Granite Bay's girls went 1-2 at the Folsom Vista tournament. Wood Creek boys lost in the championship game of the Mark Masters tournament at Monterey Trail to the host Monterey Trail. Austin Ito played very well all tournament. I want to say he averaged over 26 points per game, so huge for him. William Jessup's basketball teams are both 8-5 after wins against Menlo College on Saturday. And then I'm most likely going to be checking out John Adams' boys and girls tonight at Sac Waldorf. So looking forward to that.
And Aaron, I think the Jessup girls team actually has won 5 in a row now too. They knocked off a couple nationally ranked teams in the process as well. So, hey, hoops are heating up over there down in Rockland. I think NAI basketball. I think people don't give it the love that they give the NCAA, but there's some talent down in the NAI levels and in the levels that aren't up playing at Sac State and UC Davis.
Definitely.
Matt, throwing over to you. What was some of the other stuff you saw this week?
Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Folsom boys basketball. They haven't played anything local yet, but I think they're up in Reno for one tournament and down in Stockton for another. But they're 7-0 and looking good. Coach Mike Wall is pleased. He feels good about this team, and they have the potential to have a good season. So that's all I had on that.
All right, and now we're getting into the some of our athletes of the week, and we've got a lot of repeat offenders up here in Auburn. Kaya Diedrichs, another impressive week. Jade Bittner, Gabby Bittner, I'm sorry, a great week. Jade Bittner, I guess, is a newcomer. Gabby's sister. She was an all-tournament player at the Vista Del Lago tournament. Juliet James has been a monster on the boards for Colfax. I asked the coach about her, and she has said, she smiled when she brought her up and just said she's a gamer. But my athlete of the week this week, as of right now, Macy Hyman, another great one. But as of right now, it has to go to Doremus of Placer Soccer. I mean, even though you have the loss, you make 16 saves in a match. And as far as I'm concerned, you are the story of that match. And even if it was not the best match for you, you make 16 saves, that you did your job that night. So Ashlyn Doremus, you are going to be the athlete of the week for the Auburn Journal area. And yeah, some great performances across the board from this last week. But Aaron, thrown over to you. I know you had some impressive performances as well. Why don't you let me know who stuck out to you?
Yeah, so my athlete of the week for the Lincoln area, even though I don't really have any stats on her from this last week, is actually going to be Pamela Rydell. She committed to of Lincoln girls basketball. She committed to UC Merced on Wednesday, and she's been a solid role player for the Lady Zebras so far this season. She hit 4 threes, scored 12 points in the game against Del Oro earlier this season. So shout out to her. That's huge. They have now 2 commits, including Katie Leith, who's going to CSU Monterey Bay. My South Placer area athlete of the week is going to end up being Christelle Williams of Valley Christian Academy girls basketball. She is averaging 20 points per game and led the team to the tournament finals over the weekend after winning a tournament last season. They are 7-1, and like I said, I expect them to be dominant in league play as once again. So shout out to her. Wood Creek basketball, I mentioned Austin Ito averaged 26 points per game in their tournament at Monterey Trail. I'm sure he's going to win Athlete of the Week at some point this season. He's been really solid. I'm disappointed I didn't actually get to see Wood Creek Granite Bay to open the season because I would love to see that matchup with Ito versus Mir. But yeah, both of them very solid basketball players on that side. That's actually all I have in terms of players. The only thing I was going to say is because you brought up Colfax's girls basketball team earlier. Well, I'm probably going to be going and looking at Christmas lights Thursday night with friends. Before that, I believe it's at 4:00. The Chavez Classic is at Lincoln High School girls basketball tournament that starts on Thursday. Colfax plays Whitney, and Colfax, I think they've beaten Rockland and Del Oro so far. Whitney, I think, is better than Rockland and Del Oro. However, that should be one heck of a match. I'm going to at least try to check out the beginning of it on Thursday, and then I'm actually checking out my first wrestling duel of the season on Wednesday, Lincoln and West Park. So looking forward to that.
All right, Matt, what about you? Where are you going to be at this week?
Let me give you my athlete of the week first.
Oh, yeah, I guess athlete of the weekend, where you're going to be at.
Yeah. Well, Folsom High girls won their tournament, and we go on to Erin Bright. She's a sophomore forward, I guess you could call her. She scored 8 points against St. Mary's, and the previous night against Pleasant Valley had 11 points and 12 rebounds. And 12 rebounds is impressive because she's not terribly tall. I mean, I don't know, she's 5'5" maybe, I don't know. But Coach Walking loves her because she's a team player. She never complains, does whatever he asks her to do, gives 100% at all times. He said when the ball's in the air, she goes after it. When the ball's on the floor, she goes after it. Never has to tell her to hustle. So just a consummate team player, and that's my athlete of the week. This week, man, I got a big schedule. I hope sometimes these schedules aren't terribly accurate, but I hope this is right. But anyway, Wednesday, I'm finally gonna hit some soccer this week. Folsom High girls play Rio Americano Wednesday night, and then Thursday at 5:30, I'm gonna go head up that Lincoln tournament that Aaron was talking about. Vista girls playing that. Play Pleasant Grove, and gosh, you know what? I might get there early. I didn't know Colfax played. I'd like to see a little bit of those girls play if they're as good as advertised. Then afterwards, I think on the way home, I'll stop by Whitney High School because Vista Malago is playing them in soccer, so I could catch the second half of the game. Friday, Oak Ridge boys have a 3:30 game soccer game against McClatchy, and then at 7:00 at night, Vista boys host Vacaville. And Saturday, Vista boys have a home soccer game at 4 against Central Valley, and then at 7 p.m., Oak Ridge girls have a home soccer game against McClatchy. So that's where I will be.
All right, you got a busy week. I know I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm going to be, like I mentioned earlier, Tuesday night. I'm going to be at Colfax's soccer game against Marysville. And then Wednesday night, I think we've got a night off, but Thursday, I plan to I'm going to hopefully be hitting 2 games. I'm going to try to hit the Colfax and Whitney game and, just see what that one's going with. And I want to check out Placer girls basketball as well, as they're playing they're playing in the Sutter tournament. I've not seen a bracket yet for who they're playing, but hoping the times work out that I can, be able to check out both those teams there. And then, of course, we got some other big tournaments in the area. I know Placer boys, they're heading down to Dublin to take place in the Don Nelson Classic. So it'll be interesting to see how they do over there. Probably won't make the trip out to Dublin unless absolutely needed. But, hey, it'll be nice to keep an eye on what some of those teams are doing out there and just how some of these teams are really starting to take shape. And now, we're starting to see some of these small schools try to test themselves against some bigger names and really see where they stack up. So it's going to be an interesting week of tournaments. I think we're going to learn a lot about some of our teams this week.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too, I didn't even look as super forward to like Saturday, but I am planning on hitting Cordova and Granite Bay girls soccer on Friday, since I haven't gotten to see Granite Bay yet. I know that they lost some talent last year, but I know they've got some good returners, a couple commits, so I'm looking forward to seeing that match as well.
Yeah, definitely. And before we wrap it up, first off, does anyone have anything we want to add?
I'm good.
Good.
All right, and then one more thing before we wrap up. I guess it's a memoriam type of episode for us, but we did also want to give our thoughts out to the Valley Christian family who lost Ben Botting, who was their PA announcer for years. He was a teacher at this school. He's been very involved with the Valley Christian Athletics. He passed away over the weekend as well after a long battle with cancer. So just a shout out to the VCA family, and our thoughts are with you at this time as well, because losing someone who's been that involved and that passionate for your athletics program is not something easy to deal with either.
Yeah, 100%. And I know me and you talked about it over the weekend, Jordan. I never got to meet him in person. I always wanted to, but never got a chance to. But yeah, ever since when I started in the capacity that I'm working now in July of last year, I would always have talks with him about not just VCA athletics, but even other high school sports in the area. And he was always the most kind person, understanding person, relatable, and would just give a ton of info. And I know he used to work at the Sacramento Beat as well. He's been all around the area for decades, and yeah, I know it's a tough loss for sure. So definitely thoughts out to the VCA family.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing, I guess, if we're talking VCA, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch their basketball team in person, you got to do it, just because the Grinnell system is just unbelievable to watch. The only thing I can say about it is they play basketball the way we play video game basketball. They are just, the second the ball gets into that end of the floor, they're like, get a shot up right away. And their final scores, they're like 110-95 and stuff like. I mean, they just, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, keep in mind, I think they lost to Elliott Christian, I think in the Sac Joaquin section semis for D6 last year. And that wasn't even a high scoring game. It was 92-90. They lost. That wasn't even the highest scoring game. That's like an average game for the way they play.
Yeah. So fans, hey, if you're looking for something to do, check out Valley Christian's basketball schedule, because they got some fun games on there. But that's going to just about do it for this week's episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I'm Jordan.
I've been Aaron.
And I'm Matt.
We will see you next time.